Hi, my name is Terrie Baumgardner. I am the Clean Air Council Outreach Coordinator for Beaver County. I live in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. I'm also a volunteer with a grassroots group that's local that I've been with for more than 10 years. What I do is anything related to petrochemical resistance, I would have to say. I live 4.5 miles from the Shell petrochemical plant. It is now up and running and not running well. In many ways, there have been many violations of emissions. There have been many emissions exceedances. There have been malfunctions at this plant since it went online in November of 2022. So a lot of my current work is focused around that. I have to say that the focus now is on the plant itself, but there's a whole vast network of infrastructure that feeds this plant. That includes frac wells and compressor stations and cryogenic plants and gas processing plants and injection wells and pipelines and more, rail transport and diesel transport. And it feels, to quote one of my colleagues, it feels as if a chemical plant is being built around us. In terms of the plant itself, I have to say that the health effects experienced so far have been hard to register because the plant is so new. But there was an event in mid-April where benzene was released over the fence line, despite claims that it wasn't. We have evidence that it was. And there were odors in the nearby community of Beaver, where I used to live, and some milder symptoms, not mild, but milder symptoms, throat irritation and burning eyes and skin irritation that were experienced by residents. Those and other exceedances reflected the fact that in only a month's time, Shell released 12 months worth of its permitted emissions for VOCs and NOx and carbon monoxide. So all of that's very concerning. These are invisible emissions that many people have not been forewarned about because this is allowed during the commissioning, the so-called commissioning period of the plant. It's emissions that many people don't immediately connect with health effects because they are invisible. And because in Beaver County, we have an industrial legacy that pointed to visible pollution, black soot on the windowsills and so forth. So often you'll hear people say things like, we have it good compared to before. I can remember when my grandmother would go out and not be able to sweep off the porch and have it stay clean for 10 minutes or something like that. There's also in Beaver County here, I think, a mentality of we trade our health for jobs. So even when people are apprised of the health impacts, the connections to asthma and cardiovascular disease and cancer and endocrine disruption and adverse birth outcomes, even when they learn about that, they sometimes think in the realm of, I'll trade my health for a job because that's what we do in Beaver County. That's some of the context in which I live. I feel like I'm here in a chemical soup between the Shell plant and the Claret and Coke Works in Pittsburgh. I do go down to Pittsburgh to see my family. And what happened in East Palestine. You really appreciate when you travel and land in a place with fresh, clean air. You really appreciate it. I settled into my current home in 2003 and have been here ever since. So 2 decades now. I thought I'd live out my days here, but now I find myself trying to figure out ways to move. And that's difficult. I shouldn't have to even think about that because of something that is seemingly out of my control. After many years of activism and working with other people who feel the same, I have to say that I'm not always sure I can trust the government. I'm not always sure I can trust regulators. I'm not always sure. I know I can't trust the corporations. For me, it's a matter of, can residents themselves push back, and will they? And that's what I try to encourage, is awareness and pushback on what really is an imposition on residential lives, an encroaching industry that is increasingly interfering with people's rights to clean water, fresh air, and clean air, a right guaranteed to us by Article 27, Section 1 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Yeah, but a lot of people don't even know we have that constitutional right. One thing that has given me some hope in years of activism is the role that Clean Air Council has played on the legal front and research front. In 2015, the council put together a 70-page booklet on the health impacts of the cracker plant. And the problem was just that we couldn't get our leaders to pay attention to it, but it's a wonderful resource. I hope it made its way into the hands of some people who are now opposing the plant. Also in 2016, we went canvassing around the towns of Vanport and Beaver and Potter Township and garnered 750 signatures from residents who were in support of advocating for a fence line monitoring system around the plant. Shell at the time said, we don't need that. We have the cutting edge technology already. But Clean Air Council and Environmental Integrity Project partnered and went together on a 2-year legal battle, and they won that fight. And that is a reason we have the fence line monitoring system around the plant now. It collects air samples and sends them off to labs. In simplified terms, it provides a measure of protection that wouldn't have been there without that legal battle. Most recently, again, EIP, Environmental Integrity Project, and Clean Air Council have partnered in suing Shell for its repeated violations, a dozen or so since it came online in November, repeated violations of its air permits. And if you think about it, why should a plant be operating if it's violating its air permits that many times? Shell, as I think I said before, exceeded its 12-month rolling basis on that permit. It exceeded it and put that pollution out there, 12 months worth, basically in a month's time. And that was for NOx, that's nitrogen oxides, VOCs, which include benzene, which is a known carcinogen, and carbon monoxide. So all of this contributed to illegal smog forming pollution. Smog is deadly for everyone. It's also in the wake of no enforcement actions from the state. So that lawsuit is underway, and I have great hope that it will make a difference.